Well, hello everybody. This is Austin here, and Ashley is here as well, and Tasha is also joining us remotely since she's now married and ditched us. No, not really, but she's on the phone, and we are very excited to be talking to one of the writers and producers, and well, he wears lots of hats at Adventures in Odyssey, but his name is Bob Hoose, and welcome, Bob. It's nice to have you here.
Well, great to be with you guys. Yeah. I get to wear lots of different hats all the time, which is good because it sort of covers my bald head.
All right. Well, we're gonna start out with the first question here. How did you come to work for Focus on the Family and Adventures in Odyssey?
Well, yeah, that stems back to the early 2000s, actually, because I used to be, well, my background is actually in theater. And I used to work with a fellow by the name of Jim Custer, and we did this two-man music, comedy, and drama group sort of thing that toured all around the United States. And in the course of our touring and putting together shows, we became good friends with a fellow by the name of Paul McCusker. And as our touring years were beginning to wane and roll down, Paul had asked me, he said, "Hey, Bob, would you like to write one of these shows? Write an Odyssey show." And I hemmed and hawed about it because, let's face it, knowing Odyssey is one thing, but writing for Odyssey and really feeling confident that you could write shows that Connie and Whit could do, that's a little bit daunting. And so I said, well, maybe, and I sort of put everything in a drawer for a year or two. And then at some time later, Paul came back and said, well, what do you think about this writing stuff? And then he had another offer for me too, because Adventures in Odyssey at that time had decided they wanted to use union actors. But they wanted to go union, and they wanted to be able to bring in some really great talent through the union. And so they asked if I would be interested in being a producer and coming in and actually working with AFTRA. AFTRA is the American Federation of Television and Radio Artists. And so I, because I had my own corporate entity, I went ahead and started negotiating with AFTRA, and we created a contract where we could then hire union actors. And so that's how I sort of stepped in the door with Adventures in Odyssey, was by becoming that outside producer entity that could come in and help hire those union actors. And then I got more involved in the writing and directing side of things too. And let's see, it's been just about 15 years, I guess. Yeah, about 15 years since I started up.
Okay, Ashley, want to read the next question there?
You've been a writer, actor, director, and producer on Odyssey. What has been your favorite role, and which one is the most challenging?
Wow, that's a good question. In fact, I think the answer to both questions, is the same one. I would say it's probably the writing side of things. I mean, there are challenges and rewards to all aspects of being involved in Adventures in Odyssey, because it's just a great show. But I think the writing side of things has probably been the most challenging at times and the most rewarding. As you guys know, when you're involved in a creative process, it can sometimes be tough when you're writing a show, especially when you're working with a team of writers and we're each critiquing what we're doing and we're trying to make it as good as it possibly can be. Sometimes it can be really tough, almost like rolling a gigantic boulder uphill. You're just pushing to try and make the show as creative and fun as it possibly can be. On the other hand, once you get it done, once you put all the pieces together and you see how the things you've written and the characters that you've created, as you see them come to life, because we've got fabulous, I mean, really incredible actors, and when they give voice to those characters, and then you've got the engineering team that comes in and creates all the sound effects and puts it in certain locations, and then you've got the music writer who comes in and underscores everything. When you see all those pieces come together, it's incredibly rewarding because you really feel like you're a part of this fabulous team that's created something that people can really enjoy. So I would say, yep, right there, the writing side of things, as tough as it can be, is also extremely rewarding.
Well, kind of snowballing off that, I know you've voiced a lot of different characters on the show. Is there a favorite role that you've had acting on the show?
Well, most of the things that I've done over the years. In fact, I started doing a few little voiceover things with Odyssey way before I actually started writing and getting involved. Most of the things I do, of course, are just the little bit parts where they say, "Oh, well, we forgot to record this guy who comes in and grunts. Can you do that?" Sure. And so, I don't have necessarily characters that everybody remembers. I just do a little bit parts here and there. I suppose the one that I probably like the most is Grocer Jenkins, because he's this sort of gruff, grumbly old guy who shows up every once in a while at the local store.
Tasha, you want to go ahead and read the next question?
All right. Is Jay going to be a regular character again?
Because we've heard Jay in There and Back Again, and he's going to be in Sir Buddy's Snowy Day, I think, as well. So does that mean he's going to be a regular character, or is that just every once in a while?
Well, I don't know if you probably have spoken with somebody about this before, but Whit Hertford, who plays Jay, the reason that Jay sort of left the show and left Odyssey for a while was because Whit Hertford went overseas, and he was doing a number of different projects. He was directing and things like that overseas, and it just so happens that recently he's come back into the States to do some work here, and we've had the opportunity of having him back in the studio and having him play Jay again. So, yeah, we're hoping to have him as long as we can, because of course Jay is one of my favorite characters, and love to have him in the shows because he can create this really fun character that can sort of play the villain, but at the same time he's kind of a good guy, and it's just a fun comical character that we can use a lot. And our plan is to try and use him as much as we can.
Well, that's great. And I just want to say you've written probably some of the best Jay episodes, one of them being Groundhog Jay, which is just a classic.
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you very much. Yeah, as I said, as you can tell from my talking about it, I just love that character. In fact, two of my favorite characters in the whole show are sort of secondary characters. One is Jay, and the other one is Emily Jones, who's played by Christina Percelli, who's just a wonderful actress.
And here's another question about a character, and I know you probably can't or won't tell us very much, but when will we get to hear more about Maury?
Yeah, people have asked a lot about Morrie because we've dropped hints here and there that there's more going on with Morrie than might meet the eye. And I can tell you this much. I can say that, yes, even though because we do a limited number of shows each season, we're not able to dedicate as much time to a character like Morrie as we might like. I can tell you this much. There is going to be, over the next couple of seasons, a story arc that does involve Morrie. In fact, how can I say this without giving too much away? Okay, let's say that you may not actually see Morrie, but Morrie can sometimes be involved in some of the things that we hear about in certain shows. And bit by bit, you're going to see how all that ties together.
That sounds awesome. I know you mentioned in an official podcast in the past that you said you're working on, I think, a 2-part mystery with Morrie. Is that one we'll be hearing in, like, album 65 or somewhere beyond that?
Actually, no, that one, as I was saying with the writing process, sometimes it goes in different directions, and we never did get to do that 2-parter. We actually ended up creating something, amalgamating it into one part, and yes, you will hear that soon. And there are a number of other shows. Phil Lawler is working right now on a new Morrie show, and so am I. And you will hear a number of episodes where Morrie is introduced, Morrie and Suzu, his sister. And I find Suzu to be a very interesting character too, and I'm looking forward to the fact that we can use her more and more. But you will hear more involving that brother-sister duo, and hopefully you'll enjoy it as much as we do.
Awesome.
Yeah, my husband and I were listening to some of the Morrie episodes last night, and it has him very intrigued as well. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, well, we're hoping that that's the case with the listeners out there, and then once we get going into this, as I said, we've got this new story arc coming pretty soon, and once it starts kicking off, people may be going, "What is going on here?" and that's exactly what we want them to do.
Do you have a favorite episode you've written?
Well, let's see. I tend to really enjoy episodes that involve a lot more imagination and sort of fantasy focused kind of episodes. And so and in terms of my writing, that's what I enjoy doing. And I think most of my favorites would fall into that category. Like there's this one called Called On in Class.
Oh yeah.
That I really enjoyed doing. Yeah, and it was a lot of fun. It was one of those crazy kid with an imagination and remembering things and thinking about things, and then there was another one called this is an older show too, called The Present Long Ago.
Another great one.
Oh well, thanks. And then to be honest, there's one coming out. You just mentioned it, Sir Buddy's Snowy Day. That has really turned out to be one of my favorites of the ones that I've created. It actually sort of revisits. Okay, there was a show that I didn't write that another fellow, John Fornoff, wrote called Snow Day from years ago, and I always really enjoyed that show of his. And I thought, man, I'd like to kind of revisit that setting, the snow day, a day off from school. And that's what Sir Buddy's Snowy Day is all about. It's about, and Buddy, of course, is a character with this highly active imagination. And he has something of a Ivanhoe-like adventure with a couple of the Parker kids and Jay on this snow day. And it's really a lot of fun. I'll tell you, the engineer on that was Nathan Jones, and he did a fabulous job with it. I think you guys are going to really, really like it. I know I do.
In the case of the disappearing Hortons, Jared mentioned a big guy driving the car Liz was in. It was never resolved, but was that Liz's dad or someone else?
Oh boy, that one's harkening way back. Well, let me ask you this. Ed, have you heard the show? Have you heard the show?
Yes.
Yeah.
I've actually heard it several times. I listen to a lot of different Odyssey episodes at nighttime, and that one I've been listening to quite a bit.
Okay. Well, then let me ask you then. Who did you think was the guy in the car?
Well, when I first heard it, and because you don't know everything going on, you think it might be someone else. But like I said, it was never mentioned. But I assumed that it was just Liz's dad. But there's no mention of a woman or Liz's mom in there with in the car. But later on, we found out they were in their car. So I assumed it was Liz's dad, but it wasn't really put out there if it was or not. Or maybe just Jared was just too high on his imagination or something.
Yeah. Well, see, the reason I ask you that is because that's one of the great things about radio drama, is that if we writers don't fill in a hole, like in the script, if we don't go ahead and tell you all the details, the great thing about radio drama is that it immerses you in this story so much that your imagination helps fill in those details. And I think you guys have a great imagination and have and made the right choice. And so the one of the great things that I love about radio drama is we live now in this age of virtual reality. I don't know if you've played virtual reality games or anything like that, but everything's going virtual reality. We've got virtual reality video games. We're going to have, I'm sure, virtual reality TV shows and movies. But the great thing about radio drama is that it's been virtual reality for like 100 years now. I mean, because radio dramas, you can close your eyes and radio dramas draw you in and surround you with these characters in these wonderful environments, and you see it all. You become part of that action. And so that's why I think it works so well. So even though I'm not answering your question directly, I'm saying you guys know the answer because you fill in all the holes, and that's the wonderful part about drama on the radio.
Okay, thanks. Another question about a character. What happened to Riley from the friend formula? Because I was really interested here where that would go in his relationship with Jay, and we never heard back from him. I know we heard from, I think, Brian in some of the club episodes as a friend to Jay.
Yeah.
But I was wondering what happened to his character.
Well, that's you've asked one of those questions that I can answer, but it sort of answers by talking about the nitty-gritty of what it takes to write shows on Odyssey. He showed up, Riley showed up, and was in this episode, and the real truth behind it all, I'll whisper this so nobody else hears this, just you guys and me. The truth is that nobody else wanted to write for Riley. Yeah, that's right. That's right. I mean, after that show, they all said, "Well, what?" Because we have a writers team, and everybody said, "Well, what else can we do with Riley?" And even though I thought there might be some fun things we could do with Riley, we decided to move on. And that really, truthfully, I suppose in the world of Odyssey, of course, Riley's still there, and maybe he might show up again sometime soon. But at this point, there's nothing planned for Riley.
Well, I can kind of see that because Jay is such an independent character. I think he's mentioned in the past about that.
Oh, yeah.
But I think if somebody was like a constant companion to Jay, then I think it might affect his character quite a bit, and it'd be kind of hard for him to be himself, I guess, maybe.
That's right. And especially since there was a point where we were wondering if Jay was going to even be back, because he had to leave. And so there were a number of different issues. And but you're absolutely right. I think that's certainly a part of the equation.
Well, this next question here, I'm letting Ashley ask because it's about one of her favorite episodes to listen to.
All right, the feud of Mason County is quite a bit different than an average Odyssey episode. What was your inspiration for it?
Well, my inspiration for that was actually sort of connected to Paul McCusker's and Phil Lawler's inspiration for Odyssey. And that would go back to, it's an old television show called The Andy Griffith Show. That was sort of where they took the inspiration for Odyssey. They wanted this little small town with quirky but fun and lovable characters. And so hearkening back to that original idea, that original concept, I thought, who were those hillbilly guys that would show up every once in a while? What if we did something like that? What if we pulled together a show where Whit somehow wanders up into the woods and finds these hillbillies up there, that live this completely closed off little life that seems so out of step with the rest of the world. And that's where the idea started, and I just sort of ran with it. I'm glad to hear you liked it, by the way, because I like that show a lot too.
Yeah, and I think it was also a great use for Red and got to see a little of his character a little bit more in his background. That's
right. And Red has been one of those characters that we haven't used a lot because he is so specific that sometimes you've got to have a certain kind of context, a certain setting for him in order for him to, really fit well. And I thought this one would be a perfect fit for him, of course.
All right, let's see. Is it my turn?
No, it's Tasha's.
Oh, Tasha's. Okay, sorry, Tasha. Go ahead.
I'm not there, so you forget me. I see how it is, Austin. Okay. How were you chosen to read for the audiobooks for the Imagination Station book?
Oh, I was cheap. No, really, it was actually a situation where Dave Arnold, the executive producer, said that he was interested in doing them, but he didn't necessarily want to go out to California to record them. And because I was on staff and have done some acting, over the years in my past, they said they just wondered if I might be interested. And I said, sure, yeah, let's give it a shot. And essentially what the plan is, because we're going to do another one of those coming up real soon, that the plan is to do them in sets of 3. So I'm doing the first set of 3, and then they'll find someone else to do the next set of 3 and give you a variety of different people reading. But yeah, it just, because of whatever dramatic background that I had, I was able and had the time to just come in and give it a shot, and they said, yeah, that'll work. Hopefully they're being enjoyed. I know it's been fun to record them, and we're going to continue, and you'll see more and more of them.
Awesome. All right, now I think it's my turn, right? Yeah.
Sure, it's your turn. You go for it. Go for it.
All right. How do you go about writing for a Jones and Parker mystery for Clubhouse versus writing one for an audio episode?
That's a good question. The truth is that the thought process is similar because, like, for example, if I write a full Odyssey show and it's a mystery and I'm using Emily and Matthew, I still have to think through what that mystery is going to be. But in the case of Jones and Parker mystery for Clubhouse, it has to be really short. So the difference is that it's actually a little bit harder in some ways because I've got to condense it down, still try and come up with an interesting story that will give, readers the texture and the sense that they're in Odyssey and working with some fun Odyssey characters, but sort of condensed down into 900 words, So in essence, that's the difference. It just takes a little bit more effort to try and boil everything down and still make it interesting. But I tell you, I have really enjoyed. I will add this too. You didn't ask this, but I'm going to throw it in. I really enjoyed working with the Clubhouse Mysteries because, you were asking about Maury and about some of these other characters. I've been able to incorporate some interesting threads in the mysteries, in these little mini mysteries, that actually do tie to. Even though sometimes you may think, well, no, these don't tie together, do they? Actually, yeah. Especially as we get into this new story arc that's coming up soon, you'll be able to look back over some of the Clubhouse Mysteries and see certain threads that run through, and see how it all kind of ties together by the time we get to the end of the seasons for these mysteries.
Cool. Well, Ashley, why don't you read the last question there?
All right. What episode that you've written recently are you most excited to hear fully produced?
You guys are asking good questions. Thanks for doing so. You're just putting all this thought into these. That one's a hard one because there's been a couple of them that I've really been looking forward to. I think probably the one I'm writing right now, which is it's an Emily Parker mystery that, again, I said I like the sense of episodes that are sort of fantastic. Well, I'm working right now on an Emily Parker mystery.
I think you mean Emily Jones, right?
Oh, yeah, Emily Jones. I'm sorry. I blended them together because Emily, of course, married Matthew, and so now she's Emily Parker. Sorry. Yes, you're absolutely right, Emily Jones. And this is an Emily Jones, though. This one is in an alternate reality. So I'll just toss that out there as a little bit of a hint at where it's going. And I think I'm really looking forward to seeing what they do with it. As I said, we've got absolutely incredible staff of engineers. And when these guys get in there and start doing the sound effects and start giving us a sense of what this world is, they're so, and you add in our very gifted cast, suddenly these things just come to life. And so when it's on the page, as I'm writing on the page, I can see it, I can hear it in my head. But when they give life to it, and when they put it all together, it becomes something amazing. And I just love the process, and especially when they're working with something a little different. Especially, and this one is going to be, as I said, something of an alternate reality, and I think it'll be really fun.
Yeah, that sounds exciting. Well, that's all the questions we had today. Thank you so much, Bob, for taking time to talk to us about Odyssey, and thank you to Nathan and Rudy for helping us set up the interview.
Oh, you bet. It's always our pleasure to connect with you guys. And hey, if anybody else has any other questions based on this podcast, send us some letters. We'll get back with you. And thanks for having me on.